Hello, and welcome to the Here to Uplift podcast, where we center the stories of impactful changemakers, entrepreneurs, and community leaders who have done the hard work of uplifting themselves through adversity to get where they are today, and now uplift others along the way in their journeys. I'm Lolo Fisher, your host, lover of all things wellness, healing, and empowerment. And I would greatly appreciate if you show us your support by liking, subscribing, and sharing this podcast with others. Let's get into it. Hey y'all, my name is Lolo Fisher, and I'm the founder of UPLIFT Community Wellness Studio. I'm also the host of the Here to Uplift podcast. I want to give y'all a little taste of what this podcast is all about, so I'm going to get right into it, get real with it. I think that we sugarcoat success far too much. And here's what I mean. You take a celebrity, you take that person that you follow every single one of their Instagram posts, and you glorify their success. Like, wow, I can't believe they made it all the way from this and got to there, and there's no way I can match up to them, but one day maybe I'll be like them. And then we keep on with these one day I will, one day I can. And the reality is, you're likely pretty successful too. You're just sugarcoating other people's success to say that's so much better that you don't even realize the journey that you're on and getting towards the pieces that you're already successful at and moving towards future success and abundance. So in this podcast, I'm really capturing the stories of the journey of real successful people. And in particular, if you know me, you know I'm all about supporting and uplifting other women. So I tend to focus more on sharing women's stories. What that means is that in the Here to Uplift podcast, you're going to hear the stories of women business owners, women entrepreneurs, women wellness coaches, women that are doing their thing, working hard and hustling, working their butt off sometimes, so that we can hear what that journey is actually like behind the success. And what I'm hoping is you start hearing your own story, you start realizing that your own journey is not so far away. Here's the thing. We say journey and we think long. Oh, this is going to take me forever. It's going to take a long time. And yes, I am a strong believer that we need to have patience along our journeys for success. But the challenge in that is I hear far too many people, especially people I work with or coach, use this one day mentality as like a one day I'll get there as an excuse, as a tool of self-sabotage. And I'm not here for that. I don't want us to be doing that to ourselves anymore. And I'm saying ourselves because I've done it to myself too. I still struggle with it because it's a mindset shift that we have to work on every single day. Every single day, we need to turn our one days I will to today I will, today I can. This is what I get to do. And even just changing the language, changing the mindset, you'll start seeing how the actions and behaviors that you choose to take on shift, as well as just the reality of your life. More opportunities will start coming to you when you believe that they're on their way. So without me getting more into what I would say the frou-frou stuff, and that's probably what my mother would say. She would call it the frou-frou stuff. But thinking more about the metaphysical, the spiritual, I'm going to pause on that to tell you more about what's going to be happening on this podcast. So some of you might be watching this on YouTube. Some might be seeing just the short form clips on Instagram, TikTok, whatever. Some of y'all are going to actually be listening to the podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, so on and so on. There's a lot of different options to tune in, and I want to make sure that this is a place that you really feel like you can connect. In our very first episode with my special guest, she actually mentions a quote that is one of my favorite quotes of all time. And I'm so glad she mentions it in episode 1 because it really applies to the whole season of what Here to Uplift the podcast is all about. It's a Maya Angelou quote. She says, "People will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel." One more time for the people in the back. If you need to write it down, go ahead and write it down. If you need to clip it, if you need to pause it, do your thing. The Maya Angelou quote that I like to live by: people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. For my adults out there, I'm willing to bet you can think of a childhood memory where you felt seen, heard, valued, and appreciated. And just as much, or maybe more, you can remember a childhood memory that you felt distraught, helpless, hurt, or harmed in some way. You might be able to do that for your teenage years, your adult life, and so on, just depending on what stage and era of your life you're in, right? Those feelings, even if we don't remember exactly what happened, the feeling stays with us. It really does. So when we tell our stories, it's a tool for empowerment. And yes, my hope is that these stories of others and the folks that I get to interview and share with will empower you as you listen to this, as you watch this. But even more so, this is a story that first empowered them. And I want you to feel ready to start telling your own story. Here's my example. When I was pretty much just barely 18, but in college, I was at the University of Arizona, and I went to my first Black Student Union meeting. And this is at a time where I feel like, as a multiracial woman, I was still trying to figure out, like, I know I'm Black, but I feel like I grew up in this area where it was highly multicultural, but then my school itself was predominantly white. And then I feel like I'm always having to prove myself to my own family and question, thought. I was working through my identity and still trying to find other people's approval of who I was. So, context. I go into my first Black Student Union meeting, and they're talking about, at this extremely large, predominantly white campus, what it is like as a Black student on this campus. And people are giving examples of things that teachers have said to them, things that happened in the classroom, things that happened just when they're walking down the street, so on, all these examples. And I am sitting there feeling so affirmed, like, yes, that's what I experienced too. This is like my first semester here that I'm finishing up. I'm experiencing all of that. I hear that. Absolutely, I agree. I am feeling like this is exactly where I need to be. This is the space I need to be in. And so proud of who I am in my own Black identity. I'm listening, and after about 30 minutes, because this is very dialogue, discussion-based, just free-flowing, I raised my hand, and the person that was leading it, the president of the organization, points to one person, and they're like, yeah, go ahead and share. And I'm like, I put my hand down, wait. I raise my hand again. They're looking around. Next person, go ahead and wait. I'm like, okay, maybe I shouldn't. So I wait a bit longer, and after like 45 minutes, almost an hour really, I'm like, you know what, I'm listening to these, I feel really affirmed, and I just kind of want to share that that's what this experience is doing for me, and I'm really loving this Black Student Union meeting. I want to share this story in a sense that I had in my dance department. I raise my hand again, and finally the president points to me and says, look, I know you're raising your hand, but you're not Black enough to be part of this conversation right now. I'm not even lying. Those are the exact words. You are not Black enough to be part of this conversation right now. The whole room went silent. It got so awkward. I didn't even know what to say. I was like, words about to come out of my mouth just stopped. Silence. I was like, I don't know what to do in this moment. I've already been wrestling with my identity. I finally feel seen, heard, valued, and affirmed in a space with people who look like me, in a space with people who are experiencing similar things to me on this campus where we really can feel ostracized at times, and then you cut me off and tell me I don't belong here. I was hurt. In that moment, I didn't quite know what to do, so that's what happened. I just stayed silent. It got awkward, and then somebody else kind of brought the energy back up and just started talking, and the dialogue finished after about 5 to 10 more minutes because I think everybody just started feeling a little weird. And then there was just like, snacks, desserts and things, so people are just talking whatever. And there were a couple people who came up to me like, just so you know, you are absolutely welcome here. I don't know what that was about, but you're good to be here, so on and so on. So there was like a few people who came to show support, and then I just left. It was still going on. The function was still going on. I just left. I felt so out of place. I think it was like another month or two before I actually went back into that space. It was our MLK Center. specifically for Black students. And one of the staff members there, as soon as I walked in the space, and it was one of those times where like there weren't a lot of people in there, I was just going in there to study and get some work done, because in the evenings it was like packed with students, but in the daytime like barely anybody ever went in. So I went during the daytime just to get some studying done and kind of see what it would feel like to be in the space again. And the staff member that greeted me was like, "Hey, will you come into my office real quick?" I'm like, oh gosh, I just got here. What did I do? What the heck? Like trying to figure out what's going to happen, you know. I walk into her office and she just looked me clear in the eyes with silence for a while. Just looking me in the eyes with silence. I think she could tell I was a little nervous because I didn't know what was actually about to happen or what she was going to say. I hadn't really met her before. And she paused and said, "I see you. I heard what happened in the BSU meeting, and that's something that should have never happened." And in that moment, I'm like, okay, the nerves calm down a little bit. I start shifting and reflecting. Mind you, I'm a heavy thinker. I'm very creative. My mind instantly starts creating action plans, strategic plans, art movements, dances in my head. Like all these things can filter in my head while also listening in on a conversation. So hence why I do a lot of meditation work now. But in this moment, there's a lot of things going through my head, but my body, my heart, my nerves feel still. She said, "I see you," after looking me in the eyes. And what happened to you should have never happened. Sometimes that's all we need to hear. And in that moment, that's exactly what I needed to hear. And I'm so thankful that she said it. But she didn't say much else after that. I learned over time, and she was one of the favorite student affairs staff members I had ever interacted with, because she was always a woman of just a few words, but they always mattered. They were always well thought through and intentional. So when she said that, she was like, "How do you feel about your Blackness?" And she like put it on me, and I was like, okay. So we had this little conversation, and one of the big points that I remember was nobody can take who you are away from you unless you allow them to. You decide who you are, you decide what you tolerate, and you decide how you operate in every space you go into. So if you want to be blackety black, be blackety black. Nobody else can change that from you. Now, this is a very identity-specific example, but it has translated through my whole life. I want everybody I interact with to feel, one, like their authentic selves, like they don't have to put a mask on to talk to me, to be around me, to take my class, and so on and so on. Like, I want you to be authentically you, your whole self, whatever your personality is. It doesn't even mean that we have to like get along perfectly well. As long as you're being real with me, you're being honest with yourself, you're being who you are, I'm proud of you and I'm ready to interact with you. Yeah? So that's number one, is being authentic. But the second piece is part of this example, what this staff member did for me. I want everybody I interact with and all the work that I do to make people, especially those that I care about, but really anybody, feel seen, heard, valued, and appreciated for being their authentic selves and for the work that gets done daily, sometimes without recognition, without notice. People will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. I want to know how people feel along their journeys to success. I want to know how people feel once they reach some level of success and are now in the midst of it. I want to know if success is something that changes depending on one individual's mindset, or if it's a cultural definition of success. And the only way we're going to find that out is by listening to people's stories, real people's stories. The Here to Uplift podcast explores the stories of women who are working hard to not only make their dreams come true, but to create ripples in their communities, in their families, in the people that they work with their clients, and so much more, to help them build their dreams too. I think we all need to move beyond dream chasing into dream building. It's about taking that action. The Here to Uplift podcast should serve to inspire you. And I want to know what actions you start taking as you listen to people's stories, as you hear elements of who you are being validated and recognized in people's stories. The lowest of lows we talk about. We talk about the high highs and sometimes how it doesn't last long or how we get in our own way with self-sabotage when we do start experiencing success. We talk about the roller coaster of entrepreneurship, how you can be doing great one day, terrible the next, and then maybe find an even balance and it all starts over again. We talk about mental health. We talk about healing and the process of healing. We talk about everyday wellness, the routines that work for us and the things that don't. We talk about relationships. There is so much experience that goes into these stories being told that it's hard to even cover, I'll say, as much as is covered in these conversations. I'm so excited for these episodes that you're about to hear with amazing, powerful women who have been through some hard stuff, continue to go through some hard stuff, and are still amazingly successful, building their dreams and creating ripples of change for others to build their dreams too. The gap between your dreams and your reality is only as big as you make it. That's my true belief. You can make that gap huge by continuing to say one day, or you can decide today to find a mentor, to take one more step or action towards your next goal, to write down your dream, to share your dream with somebody you trust so they can hold you accountable, to listen in on examples from people who have done the work, who are already doing it, who've been there, done that. To continue one day at a time in pursuit of your dream. Make that gap teeny tiny. Make your reality and your dreams one. And it starts today. We don't need that giant gap. We don't. The gap between your dreams and your reality is only as far as you make it. I can't wait for you to hear more. Thank you so much for listening, and I'm excited for the interviews that are to come on the Here to Uplift podcast. I'm your host, Lolo. I'll catch you next time. Bye.